This is your emergency broadcast system announcing the commencement of another purge of the BS, sanctioned by the First Amendment. Frustration levels 0 to 100 have been authorized for use during this purge. All weapons are restricted. Government officials have not been granted immunity from the purge of the BS and shall undoubtedly receive the smoke. Commencing at the sound of the gong, any and all BS, especially unnecessary goofiness, will be purged without consequence. Police, fire, and emergency medical services will be available, but they will be busy because they too will be watching the purge of the BS. Blessed be those who have already been victims of some BS. May God be with you all.
We can enter any home we want, and we will not. His warnings are will on this fine night. Don't force us to hurt you. Please just let us purge. To the standards.
You better find someplace else to go.
I got a wicked sweet tooth tonight. And I want my candy back.
Cut yourself to IMZ already in the chat. I see you. And thank you for showing up nice and early for another one. Yes, another one. Yes, another one. Another purge of the BS has commenced, and we are here. Now look, I'm gonna figure out why I'm missing something in the corner here. I'm missing my name. Okay. And I'll figure that throughout this episode. But thank you everybody for joining in. I got a very special guest this evening because there has been a lot of talk about the so-called black and blue. I don't want to call it hypocrisy, but let's just call it the conflict. And because people have asked me about this and I have no first-hand knowledge, I had to bring on a very special officer to explain this. So let me introduce Officer Gamble, former Officer Gamble, Corporal Officer Ron Gamble. Mr. Gamble, please come and say hello to the people here.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
All right. We are doing well. All right. Let me figure out my situation with this. I'm having a problem with our names not showing up where they're supposed to. So I'm working on that right now. But I just wanted to, introduce you to our audience. Everybody's tuning in because they wanted to have this conversation. So thank you very much for joining in with us tonight. So how you feeling tonight, Officer Gamble? You ready to have a quick purge of the BS?
I am. It's former Officer Gamble. I'm newly retired as of January 1st of this year. Thankfully, after 25 years. So
25 years of service. Wow.
Yes.
Wow. And hey, you're still surviving and thriving. So I definitely am appreciative of that. That is great. So let me get into the question segments that I have here. I wanted to give people a chance to get onto the show here a little bit because I don't want to have to ask anything twice, as we progress through. So, nonetheless, I did have, of course, a couple of really quick questions for you. and I just wanted to run down my list of questions. Are you okay with anything goes kind of situation here?
Yeah, let's
Okay,
go.
let's do it. So the intro and the focus of this show was basically the complex and mysterious life of the black police officer, because I personally have not been one. I've met a few, and the ones I've met have always been good. But I always wanted to ask you, what inspired you to join law enforcement?
Yeah, so for me, joining law enforcement, I didn't have I guess the prototypical story of wanting to to be a police officer my whole life. How I wanted to decided that I wanted to become a police officer is I went to college up at UConn, played football up there.
Hmm.
When I came home, had a whole bunch of different managerial jobs. Didn't like wearing a suit every day, so I was young. I was 22 years old. Uh, Bar hopping, going in Baltimore City, going to clubs like crazy. And I happened to always see when the club let out, there was always something going down, and Baltimore City police would be there, and they would be arresting people and breaking up fights, and it looked fun. So I was young, and
It looked fun to break up fights.
it looked fun. So I
Okay.
had never done anything my whole life, so criminal wise. So it was a pretty quick process for me. So I started applying everywhere and just got in, and it was different every day, and I loved it for a lot of years.
Wow. So you said it wasn't something that you initially grew up with as far as like wanting to always be in law enforcement. It just literally popped into your head one day and you just
Yeah,
ran with it?
yeah. A buddy of mine, his cousin was a police officer, so he used to rave about how much fun he was having. And me being young, I wasn't having fun wearing a suit every day at
Right.
work. So I said, "Well, this will be fun. I'll give it a try for a little while." And I fell into it, and I would have done it for free for many, many years. Loved it.
Wow. So did you initially face any pushback from your family or your community, like when you decided to go into law enforcement, since it wasn't already established that that was something you were shooting for?
Well, so when you get into law enforcement, I mean, you lose friends right away just because they know you're going to be a police officer. So anybody that was about some shady BS, uh, I lost as a friend, which was good because if I didn't know they were shady, I knew they were shady when I lost them, when I told them I was going to be a police officer. So that was better for me. So you kind of lose a couple and find out who your real friends are.
Hmm. So the losses were worth it, basically.
Yes,
That
yes,
sounds like that. I mean, as people get older and they start to do and move into different things, it's normal to lose a few so-called friends along the way, because especially if you go into law enforcement.
yeah.
Was there anything that you can remember specifically in your own personal journey that was like something that shaped your actual identity as a law enforcement officer? Was it like, a particular reputation you may have had or a nickname they may have called you?
Well, I always got for so I would say athletically, I'm not a big guy for like a football player type big guy. I'm never been the biggest guy on the field, but for your regular size police officer, I'm huge. So the thing I got my whole career was, oh, I'd have to shoot you. I'd have to shoot you. This is what other police officers would always say to me, uh, jokingly, because I'm just a big black dude.
Okay, well, y'all play different apparently. If that was jokingly, y'all play a little different in that group apparently.
Yes, yes.
So
Police officer humor is a little ridiculous. It goes right up on the line. Sometimes crosses it as a normal thing.
and how did you deal with that kind of rhetoric in those, especially when you first get in there, like you don't have any tenure? Do you just stay silent?
Well, I would say that how it works in police work is when you first get in, you end up, letting a lot of things go because you're trying to, get in there and fit in. And as you mature and become the better officer and grow up in the department, you start to realize, hey man, that certain stuff you're not going to put up with, and you start making that known, and then you don't get it as much as you did before.
Well, that's an interesting kind of story, because I was going to ask some questions about, like, some of these things that you were saying as far as the jokes, they sound like they could be racially motivated, right? So how do you navigate being both black and part of the blue in this current America, at least for the last 20 years? It's been pretty rough, right?
Well, yeah, I think initially, when I first became an officer, the first couple of years, we were heroes and everybody loved us. And then, my last probably 8, 9 years, we were hated and everybody hated us. But stuff didn't change as far as police work and how officers respond and all that stuff and how they interact with one another and within the department. But, I would say that it definitely opened my eyes some to, things that I used to not notice as much are much more noticeable now. And, I would have to check some people and be like, hey, that's, we need to rephrase that. You need to, what are you really saying? Because, just like the police department, at least the one I'm familiar with, is a good old boy system. It's predominantly one race, and that becomes readily apparent, and they let you know that.
Hold on, they let you know that you were part of a minority within the blue? I thought the blue was the color itself, and you didn't see color. Isn't that what they try to let us know in the public?
Well, so when I say let you know, that is when you say the thin blue line. This is why I never like the thin blue line. They make those flags and all that stuff. The thin blue line is just ridiculous. It does not symbolize brotherhood. What it symbolizes to me is that police officers think of themselves as their own category or culture, and everybody else is on the other side. So they want to keep police safe and keep the police code of whatever within a tight-knit group, and keep everybody else on the other side, us versus them type thing. And
so the police, well, but I thought the goal of the police was to increase, like, community and police, I guess you would say, communication and working together. But if it's the police versus the community, it's us versus them. Isn't that a hard thing to come by when that's the overall view?
Well, it definitely is, and I think it's meant to be. The feeling behind it is, it's supposed to, increase, the interaction between the community and the police officers. But I think that it's unfortunate that a lot of times that's not the way that the police department, they've run it that way. Like, they're trying to do that, but I don't think they're really doing it. I think they're trying to, play faces and, play nice, so they can make it appear that way, but don't really want to engage and put themselves, really engulfed in the community. I think there are some officers that do that, and I've known many that really, really cared and tried to help the community. But I'm saying the vast majority aren't doing that. They just want to take the pictures, get the post on to put on social media, and then they're right out the door on to the next thing.
Wow. Well, have you you mentioned there was certain jokes, but have you ever been, that of, like, racially influenced in a situation at work where you were kind of put between being on the side of the blue or on the side of the black? Have they ever really put you in those kind of situations, or did they ever put you in those kind of situations?
So for me, my whole career, I've got I'm intimidated. Like I said, I've got the joke, I'd have to shoot your big ass type thing. So for me, no, but I've called out and pointed out racist individuals on my department and made it official years ago. I was at the training academy and I taught fair and partial policing to our whole department, and myself, and wasn't just me, myself and 2 or 3 other instructors, put something formally together to, notify the department that, we had a good large majority of some, racist individuals on this department. And, they chose to just, turn the other cheek and not do anything about it. And I think that it's unfortunate, but, it's not a good majority of the department do have some, some racial tendencies, but, they're going to, instead of trying to identify them and weed them out, they're going to, they chose to, wait until they have to, and until their hand is forced. So, but that's out of my control. That's not on me, but, wow. I called out the stuff, and we identified the stuff that we thought, we had some issues with, and, it was left at that.
And so there was no change. And did you get any type of, negative repercussions for having spoken out about that?
Well, I got some pushback and some looks, of course, and then they had us stop teaching, that block of instruction, because they did not want us to even talk about it or bring it up anymore.
Wow.
So
you just there's really no way around it. It sounds like you kind of have to do what you're told in this situation, or they'll just weed you out and say you're insubordinate or something.
Well, it's a paramilitary organization. It's definitely they're never going to. They may not say it up front, but they're definitely going to take care of it in a different way. Transfer you or do something that, have you do something that you don't want to do and say it's not punitive, but it is punitive. That type of thing.
So it's hard to prove, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just like any other job. It's really hard to prove that somebody has retaliated against you if they find certain ways to use the loopholes in paperwork and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I can only imagine that there is a certain level of paranoia when you're dealing with police officers who might have that kind of a vengeance. They can easily find your home address, your family. They have weapons, they're licensed to carry. It seems like you might feel a little bit more danger because the people that could be upset are probably highly trained people. So that's an interesting. I don't know how to ask a question on this, but have you ever been worried about your family's safety from other officers when you were enlisted or signed up?
Yeah. So no, I've never felt that at all. I don't think it's ever been to that extreme level. Plus, I unfortunately grew up my whole life fighting. I've been a professional boxer before. I'm a defensive tactics instructor. I've done that all. I'm a firearms instructor. I'm good. I feel pretty comfortable in that realm of physical stuff. So no, I've never felt that, it got to that need.
Wow.
Where it would come close to that.
Well, that's good. That's good. Have you now, as far as the same question, but for the community in which you served, have you ever been worried that the community members would be trying to dox you and find out where you live and mess with, your kids or your wife?
Well, I mean, yeah, there have been times, where I've been in, and usually when I'm in regular clothes, people usually don't recognize me. I usually recognize them first. But then once I start, talking and stuff like that, sometimes they'll catch on. I had a couple times where they would tell somebody else, and then that person would come and tell me, hey, so and so over there, might have an issue with you, and he might do something. And I'm like, I don't think he will. I am armed and off duty, so I don't think that's gonna get to that level. And you should probably, if you're really concerned, you should probably tell them, hey, let's not take it to that level. But I never had anything pop off.
Okay, well that's
I had the lure of it a couple times here and there.
Right. So you would basically describe yourself as a de-escalator, not an escalator, right?
Oh, definitely a de-escalator. I've had a lot of training in that, and through teaching, and I've done so much of that. I think I have the personality, and where everybody always wants to come talk to me, and the more that they talk to me, it's usually disarming and gets them to relax, and we usually chop it up.
Did you have a tough time with de-escalation initially when you first started as an officer, and it's like, let's say it's your first 3 months out on the street, you're kind of nervous out there, that's normally when people make most mistakes, is early in their career. Did you have issues with de-escalation early on and then learned it, or was it just always something that you were able to do?
No, I would say 3 months. You must be talking more. For me, it was more like probably 4.5 years. I had trouble with it. I used to, being young, I was young and, full of piss and vinegar, wet behind the ears, I have a problem. I used to be a rage monster, to get all upset, traffic violations would make me mad. Everything would make me mad, I had to get out of that. How I got out of it, for me, before I started having the de-escalation training, is I started, like boxing and doing stuff like that. And I realized that I couldn't fight as well, couldn't think as well once I got so angry. So I started to work on my breathing and just trying to keeping myself calm. And then that carried over to work and stuff like that.
That's scary as hell, right?
I'm just being honest. Right? At least I'm telling you the truth.
Right there. For about 4 years, man, you couldn't control me. I didn't know I was wilding out here. I had to punch a bag. Yeah, I get it. At least you didn't. Yeah, I don't know for a fact, but I'm just going to say at least you didn't hurt anybody too bad. So, but you said traffic violations was getting on your nerves. So what did they say? Yeah. Did they put you on a policing duty that you didn't like, and you ended up taking it out on the public? Did that actually happen?
No, I mean, young officers, learning the job, when I say I was full of piss and vinegar, I was earing to go. I thought I was going to, change the world. I was trying to lock everybody up, give as many tickets and everything I possibly could, trying to make a dent like I was a crime fighter, And
that didn't help you with the other officers, like for, did they think that you were Superman, or did they say that you were, doing too much, call you hot-headed? Like, how did the officer corps deal with the fact that you were that ambitious that early?
No, so I would say that I wasn't as ambitious as everybody else. I was the lighter of ambition compared to the other young guys. I was a rage monster. I get all worked up, try to do as much as I could. But I would say I've never been an ego monster where I get personally offended by stuff and have what I call, short man disease. That runs rampant in the police department. People have egos and, go crazy and, can't ever bring it back down.
Wow.
That's a big problem. But I would say I don't think I ever had that.
Have you ever had to either talk down or calm down a fellow officer in the line of duty?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I had to chill them out and be like, and literally have to say, hey, look, man, you need to calm down, chill out and, put my hand out to them. Look, calm down, chill, relax,
wow.
to try to bring them down some.
So is that, I hate to dig a little deeper there, but is that something that you would frequently have to deal with, is trying to calm officers down, or is just like one bad guy just always was doing too much and you always had to calm that one person down?
Well, there's a lot of bad guys. There's a lot of, guys and girls. There's a lot of ego monsters. There's a lot of, girls that get easily offended. There's a lot of guys that get easily offended. You get to the point where you just know who they are when you hear it on the radio, and you're like, oh, you know who's calling over the radio. You know what you're going to step into. So when you get there, you just got to set yourself up for that. I'm like, hey, let me try to pull them away from the situation. What do we have exactly? And try to frame that out for them. And I mean, I had officers back in the day working the street where, they would say, all right, as soon as I get there, they're like, I need you to search them. And I'm like, nope, search them for what? And I would have to ask them and have them line it out to me exactly before I search them, because I know I'm not getting caught up in their bullshit.
Oh.
Or have, officers say, oh, put them in handcuffs. And I'm not putting them in handcuffs. You got to explain to me what's going on before I take any action. And sometimes I had to line them out and, redirect it a little bit to get it squared away.
So did you learn to not just blindly follow orders over time, like you might have made a mistake by doing that early on, or that was the protocol that you guys are supposed to follow?
Well, so absolutely, you're supposed to back up your partner, respond, help.
Let's see. I'm gonna see if the stream is still up. I don't know though.
Okay.
All right, it looks like it's still up. Something's still up. All right, stream is still up. Cool. So nonetheless, sorry, we were trying to get out of the share here, and it took us out of the share. So let's go back to the share. Transition that. Sorry. That was crazy. The whole system just crashed on me. So if you're still here in the chat, thank you for hanging out. I don't know what that was, but the whole thing just crashed. You must have said something. Because on this channel, if you say certain things, they come and shut it down. And if they know I'm talking to the police right now, or former police right now, this is a perfect one to shut down. So let me show you this next clip. This was some officers detained an FBI agent. And I'm going to let you see it. We can't watch the whole thing because it's pretty long, but I will definitely let you have to see. Well, here's a quick question before we get into it. Have you ever pulled over a person who was like not a police officer in your group, but like another type of federal officer or something like that?
Yeah.
Did they try to pull rank on you or something and say, I outrank you, but they don't?
No, so I've never had I've pulled over, officers from state police, from different jurisdictions, from out-of-state officers, retired officers. I was usually fine with them. They would, show me their credentials. I, for one, would verify it and believe them, and then I usually would, let them go or give them a warning or something like that. I've never had one that was being verbally aggressive and, being a dick to me at all.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess that's good that you didn't have to worry about that.
No.
So let's see what this guy had to worry about. You can see the screen over here still?
Yep.
All right.
Suspects in custody. Officers were fired after a real confrontation between a HUD federal enforcement investigator and police escalated from a simple flat tire into an unlawful detention, a botched badge check, and a six-figure federal civil rights lawsuit.
Yeah, I just talked to the officer. The officer pushed me, but I could get inside.
Yeah.
And they just talked AAA 60 to 90 minutes.
60 to 90 minutes?
Yep, they said they'll try to get there quicker.
Okay.
So they send me updates.
We can't block the entrance, though, because the buses need to come in here.
I'm not blocking the entrance, though.
Yeah, this is the entrance. Only buses come through here.
I know that, but he said because I was disabled.
Who said?
The police officer.
What police officer?
Okay, the one that was here who offered to assist me. I had my shoes off because my feet are hurting.
That's okay.
Yeah, I would not lie to you. I'm a federal officer myself.
A federal officer with a badge, credentials, and 2 law degrees gets handcuffed on the side of the road by authorities who couldn't handle being questioned.
You offered to assist me.
What are you reaching your bag for?
My badge.
Okay.
You know I'm looking. Why, you're not getting nervous, are you?
Well, of course I am, because
Why?
people are reaching inside of a bag. I don't know you.
But that's when I get my badge, so you will.
Okay.
So, yeah, the officer was here earlier. I just had to pull someone over. He saw that I had a flag. The officer assist me. So then I said to him, it's a train station.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you're a disabled vehicle, it's okay.
That response is telling. An officer who genuinely believed they were dealing with a potential impersonator would be trying to verify the claim, not trading insults.
No, it's a bus station and a train station.
I'm aware of that. But I can't
I need to have my buses coming in. I work for transit.
Okay.
So, well,
but it's disabled. So I'm waiting for the, just so you'll know. But you don't have to have one, so you know.
can I see it?
No, just take my word for it, okay?
No, can I see it?
No. I just showed
You know,
it to you.
it's illegal to...
I got to pause it there. I got a question for you. Is it illegal for you to not show your, I guess your identification, like put it in their hand? If you show it to them so they see it, is it illegal to not hand it to them?
No, it's not illegal, but so what he's saying is illegal is it's illegal for him to identify himself as a federal law enforcement or a regular local or state law enforcement officer and not actually be one. It's a felony. So he can't present that and then not give you the means to verify it, because then you're potentially committing a felony by falsely representing yourself. So that's what he's saying it's illegal by. He's trying to grab it so that he's going to ask him then, I assume, for his identification to match those two things up, and then he's going to try to verify it through whatever department that is, I would guess.
So is that legal for the guy to not let him do that? Like if he says you saw it, that's all I'm going to do for you. Is it legal for him to refuse to give it to him?
No, not in that case, because so the officer has reasonable articulable suspicion that something could be going on. He's stopped in the middle of a roadway, possibly blocking a road. So he's trying to identify who that person is, trying to identify the vehicle. He's probably going to have to tow the vehicle or move it out of the way because it's blocking the road. So he's got a valid reason to talk to that guy, identify him, to make sure, especially now since he said that he's a officer of some sort, to try to verify that. So he's got a reason to talk to him. He needs to see it for whatever verification. Like, so the guy doesn't have to physically give it to him. He could have just held it up where he could see it so he could write it down and then pull out his license and, hold up his license so he can see it and, visually verify it before putting it away. So he doesn't have to hold it, and let him have it, but he's got to hold it up so he can make the proper, visual inspection of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So I guess my question is, for this guy that pulls out the badge and everything, what difference did it make that he was a federal officer, considering the problem was his car sitting where it was and not like him as a person initially?
So I would say it doesn't make a difference that he's a federal officer. He's sitting in the middle of the road. He's got to get him out of the road. The difference would be how that officer would have handled it. If he could verify that he was an officer, he might, call his partner and they might try to push his car, put it in neutral and push it out of the way, versus if it's a guy who's, being ignorant and, going back and forth with him, he might just call a tow truck and tow his car. Do you understand the difference? Right. It's how he would handle it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to let this continue. I just wanted to know initially because he said he didn't have to give him that, is what he was saying. Well, I don't have to give it to you. And I'm wondering, was that act itself even legal? So I've seen people do this before. Yeah, I've seen people where they put their license on a window or something, but they don't actually give it to the officer. And the officer's like, nah, I need to have it. I need to touch that. So, yeah. All right, let's keep going.
So say you're a federal officer when you're not.
So now you call me a liar?
A federal officer gets a flat tire near a transit station, is initially assisted by police and allowed to pull into the area, but the same cop calls transit officer on him, and he immediately orders the vehicle moved and accuses the disabled federal agent of lying.
Can I see your badge, please?
You can look at it. See the picture there? That's me.
So
now I'm
need to see
enforcement, COG and DOJ, yes. So now you've accused me of being a liar.
Okay, let me see your badge.
No, you've seen it.
You're going to go under arrest here in a very quick minute.
Arrest me?
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am. Because
you don't want your job.
You're saying that you're a federal officer.
Okay, yeah, yes, call your supervisor.
The federal agent clearly displays his badge and offers to let Officer Morrell inspect it. But when Morrell demands the badge be handed over, the agent refuses and is told he's going to be arrested.
You're saying that you're a federal officer.
Call your supervisor right now.
Let me see your badge, please.
Call your supervisor.
I'm a supervisor.
No. I want another supervisor.
Well, let me see your badge.
I want another supervisor.
Let me see your badge.
No, call your supervisor.
Get your badge out and show.
No, I will not. You can't demand your badge. I think I'm stupid. I'm also a lawyer as well.
Really?
You've already called me a yes, I am.
Okay.
You've already called me a liar. I'm sorry to see you.
Hey, just stand right here.
Officer Morrell apparently doesn't know. There is no law in the United States requiring a federal officer, or any person for that matter, to physically surrender their identification to a local law enforcement officer on demand.
Just stand right here. Stand right here.
So the narrator's saying he doesn't have to give it to him, which I guess is confusing. So far, do you think the officer is in the right or the gentleman that's not being as compliant?
So I would say that in my opinion, I think they're both in the right somewhat. I would say the officer's more in the right than the possible federal agent. So all they would have to do is listen. He's in the middle of a roadway, sitting there. He's not, following orders. He's not being compliant with the officer. I think the officer's being extremely lenient with letting him reach all around the vehicle and making all these movements. I mean, he could be reaching for a weapon and doing whatever. It would be much better, and it would behoove that person that if he was going to reach in the car or reach in the bag, he would verbally telegraph those movements to the officer so that the officer would not think he was doing something he wasn't. All he has to do is, because he's in the middle of the roadway sitting there and the officer has to identify him, has to get the vehicle moved, he's got to just hold it up so he can write the stuff down. And then he can put it away. That's fine. But, him saying, hey, call for the supervisor, he should have called for a supervisor and certainly wait for that. But he can't just go back and forth. And this is where I think the officer, got his butt hurt a little bit. I think the guy got, after being called a liar, got his butt hurt a little bit. So now they're in a peeing contest going back and forth. It's going to continue to spiral from here.
All right, well, let's see where it goes.
Stand right here. You're being detained.
No, I'm not being detained. Yes, I am a lawyer.
Yes, you are.
Call your supervisor.
This guy's claiming to be
call your supervisor.
Federal officer.
That's right. Call your supervisor. Are you arresting me?
You're being detained right now.
No, are you arresting me? That means nothing.
Yes,
that means nothing.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
If you're a lawyer,
call your supervisor.
If you're a lawyer, you know
call
that doesn't mean something. You're being audio video recorded.
And I'm going to record you too.
Cool.
Call your supervisor.
Displaying credentials is standard practice, but refusing to hand them over to an officer who is already hostile and accusatory isn't obstruction. It's a reasonable, smart step to prevent misuse or leverage during a tense encounter.
It seems like it might be an escalation, though.
Yeah, definitely it's an escalation.
Yeah, I don't think the narrator seems like he's on the guy's side, but to me it seems like if you're a federal officer, you let them have your little badge, whatever, and they look at it and you're good to go. But if you start to go, I'm not going to let you touch it and all this, then it causes additional escalation, at least in my opinion. Okay.
100%.
All right. Let's keep going.
So you do need to move the vehicle.
It is disabled. Is your supervisor coming?
I can push it out of the way.
Is your supervisor coming?
I can push it out of the way.
I have requested your supervisor. Is he or she coming?
You're blocking an entrance.
Okay, you answer the question, Officer Morrell. I asked for this supervisor.
And I told you that I am a supervisor.
Okay,
so.
you have another supervisor as well?
No, I do not.
Yes, you do not. Yes, you do.
No, I do not.
Okay, come on.
I told you, I'm transit police.
When you call me a liar, you already lost credibility.
Courts have ruled several times under Fourth Amendment, 18 U.S.C. Paragraph 9 and 12, and state stop and ID laws that you can usually refuse to hand over personal or federal ID or documents to a local officer unless there's a warrant. lawful court order, law or direct statutory requirement.
Okay, well, you are lying.
Okay, so now you call me a liar.
Yeah.
I am not lying.
Okay.
Well, there's nothing you can do about it.
You need to move. Okay.
Okay.
You need to move
arrest
this.
me for impersonating a federal officer.
Yeah.
Okay, arrest me then.
Yeah, I want to see your badge.
No. You will not see my badge.
So you cannot just say you're a federal officer and not provide me the
arrest me
opportunity to look
first.
at it.
I've already told you I was. You call me a liar. Arrest me first so I can get you a false arrest.
The vehicle is clear.
And I told you I was a lawyer. You said I wasn't.
Officer Morrell tells the federal agent to put his hands behind his back and declares him detained. His stated reason, suspicion of impersonating a federal officer. Let's pause right here, because this is one of the most legally significant moments in this entire video.
I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
Oh, I didn't.
You said really?
Yeah, that's a question.
Okay,
really?
No. And I want your badge for number 2.
Cool.
You're a supervisor. Wow. You must be a DEI hire.
So I requested your badge. You are supposed to.
Did you hear him say it must be a DEI hire? But the guy's white though.
Yeah. They're just saying stuff to straight agitate each other now.
Okay, all right. I'm just making sure I'm catching this thing because at this point, the gentleman wants something else to happen so he can sue whatever department. That's what he said. I'm gonna get you on wrongful arrest instead of, like you said, just letting them see the badge. And this the end of this encounter is pretty much what it sounds like. What would have happened? But let's see where this goes. We're almost to the
Stop
talking.
me a liar. You guys
Stop talking.
I have every right to talk. You're not my daddy.
Hello, I'm trying to ask you something.
Okay, you can ask me.
So stop acting like a child.
Under Terry versus Ohio, 1968, police can only detain someone briefly if they have reasonable, articulable suspicion of criminal activity. Here, showing a federal badge and PIV card, explaining his role, and requesting a supervisor does not meet that standard.
You telling me I'm not acting, so now you're telling me you're the one acting like a child.
I said if you are a federal agent, you need to provide.
I said federal officer.
You need to provide me. Yes, you do.
No, I do not have to. I do not have to.
Yeah, you do.
I do not.
We're going to be on
You do.
Once you call me a liar,
Hello.
Once you call me a liar,
Turn around, put your hands behind your back. You're being detained.
No, you're being arresting me. You're forcibly arresting me.
You are being detained.
For what reason? For what reason?
Suspicion of impersonating a federal officer.
What should have been enough was the man showed a badge. He showed a PIV card. That's a personal identity verification card, the same kind issued to all federal government employees under Homeland Security Presidential Directive 12.
Now, just in my own opinion here, what are the chances that a person is sitting on the side of the road with a flat tire and happens to have a badge and a PIV card that's not real? How often does that kind of stuff happen?
Well, I think, no. I don't know. I think usually someone who has a badge of any sort would be a little bit more cognizant of the area and know that they shouldn't be sitting there and would try to, rectify the situation quicker or to be able to call somebody, a resource to help them get the car moved a little quicker. But, I think both the driver and the officer are both being ignorant at this point. If the officer just had a little more, de-escalation and being able to talk to him and calmly and just, write his stuff down, it wouldn't have to go to this level. I think he's, he doesn't believe that he's a federal agent, and he believes that, there could be potentially a felony going on as him not being a federal agent. So, in my opinion, I would say he has the grounds to detain him to get it figured out. And it looks like that's what he's doing. Now, normally you don't want to do detentions in handcuffs unless you feel like you physically have to. But I think this guy is, almost forcing his hand to try to make that, the case because he wants it to happen.
He does want it to happen, and that's the part that's it's obvious he's trying to escalate it at this point because he's a little pissed off that the guy didn't believe he was a federal agent. But I'm just thinking in terms of like just everyday life, right? You roll up on somebody who's got a flat tire over at the bus station. Is it just me, or is it just, I don't think it would be very often that you would roll up on that person and they would have a whole federal badge, PIV card. So in my opinion, I honestly feel like him showing it should have been like, okay, this guy's obviously somebody. He could have just looked at the name, maybe made a call, and then satisfied it that way. but I don't remember him ever actually asking the guy his name in that encounter.
No, he hasn't.
So it's like he's not really concerned with identifying who he is, in my opinion.
He clearly has some bad training, and I hope he's not a supervisor because he clearly is not doing this right.
Well, he said he was a supervisor. He said he said he was the only supervisor right then. So that could mean anything. I don't know what that means. But all right, so I just wanted to get a gauge on this because, in my opinion, both sides were being kind of jerks, but it's very rare, just in my opinion, that anybody has a badge and a PIV card and all that kind of stuff just sitting around. So just in case the police roll up on them, they can say they're a federal agent. Most people don't have that kind of stuff. They're actually federal agents.
Correct. So, and it's what even is rare for me is I've never met a federal agent of any sort or any type of law enforcement officer who does not have that badge or whatever on their physical person. They're keeping it in a whole different area than them. They would have that planned out. If it was, in a bag, it would be a bag sitting next to them within arm's reach of where they're at, not behind them all the way in the back seat. That's not convenient.
Yeah. Well, he got out, and that was interesting because most times as soon as you step out of the car, they're like, get back in the damn car.
Yeah, you never get out. That was all bad right there.
Right. But the guy, just from the general look of him, he didn't look like your average, like a thugged out criminal. He looked like an old guy who had a flat tire in the front of a bus station. And I would think the officer should have been more apt to help since he wanted him to move out of the way. He could have just said, hey, I'll push you, or offered some actual assistance. I don't remember hearing him really offer any assistance either. It's just, you got to move the car. Okay, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm on rims right now. How are we supposed to move this thing? So it just seems like they never really started working towards a solution. It just immediately got into some escalation where the federal guy probably felt like he outranked the transit guy. And the transit guy was trying to, this is his turf. So you got to follow his rules. So he was flexing his arms a little bit. And at the end of it, the guy got arrested, but I heard that the actual transit officer got fired. So considering the interaction that we saw, do you think the transit officer should have gotten fired?
So I would say no, but I would say he definitely, would need to get, a lot of retraining, maybe a good suspension. But no, I don't think he should have got fired for that, unless this, we haven't finished watching, unless this escalated into like some heinous and super harsh, physical interaction where like he's beating the smithereens out of this guy.
I don't think that happens. I think they just locked him up, and that was pretty much it. Let me see if there's anything else. No, they just keep talking to him in the car.
Yeah,
and. So, nonetheless,
one arrested.
What Officer Morell actually had was someone who disagreed with him, that a lawyer and a federal agent, and detaining him based on nothing more than their assertive behavior and refusal to comply with an unreasonable demand was wrong on so many levels.
All right, well, that was AI talking because that wasn't even correct English. So they obviously used AI to transcribe or at least narrate this particular video. But nonetheless, we get the point that in general, neither one of them was 100% right. But just in my general opinion, it would just be so rare that you would ask somebody, to move their vehicle and they would happen to have a fake badge and all of that and show it to you. Like, I don't know. I just think it would be hard to come by something like that. So the fact that he even had something and it even looked like something should have kind of de-escalated it as well. But it wasn't. The point was, it didn't matter that he was a federal agent. The problem was his car sitting there. So if they weren't going to try to solve that problem, they were going to still have the same problem. So okay,
because he still had to tow the car.
Yeah, the car's still a problem. So they never got to the root of the issue.
But the problem I see is the problem of they never really show the officers. So you don't know what he looks like, but
he's a white guy, or look kind of white. I saw him off the mirror when he was standing next to the car.
So look, you get pulled over if you are a federal agent or whatever that card is. I'm not going to sit there and argue back and forth with the officer. He's the one who's got the gun. I don't want to go back and forth with him, because I go back and forth, it could turn out bad for me. And this guy has no fear, wants to get arrested. You can tell he's not a black guy.
Yeah, he hopped out, reached in the bag. Most people get shot for stuff like this.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I'm just making sure that I was right in saying that both parties were a little wrong in this. Yeah. But I just think that they could have de-escalated this 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to get to our last one. This one is more of a question that was formed by this post this lady put out, talking about criminal conduct within the police force and what's most prevalent. So I'm going to play her little clip. It's like a minute, and we'll have a quick discussion about it afterward. Okay.
Did you know that sexual misconduct is the second reason or highest reason that cops are accused or convicted of misconduct?
Mm-mm.
The per capita of police versus general public is higher when it comes to sexual misconduct. So for every 100,000 police versus one for every 100,000 citizens, it is higher for police than it is for citizens.
Interesting.
I mean, there are some major issues that are still present. Like racism is still alive. Like to think that these things aren't present, to think that, in Arizona, we used to have this, the Tempe Police Department, they were called the Devil Dogs. And it was because after the sun went down, if you were a person of color, you would be expected to be stopped by the police. Did you know?
All right, so I do have a question. Is that a true statement that the highest criminal conviction for police officers is sexual misconduct?
So I'm not sure, but I would say she's mostly right on. The same stuff that's been dealing with police. She was right. Racism is alive. That's a real thing. Sexual misconduct, drugs, alcohol, and sex have been getting police officers in trouble for 100 million years. The same stuff that got people in trouble in the 80s has still happened today in 2026. It's the same thing, just different time, and it's slightly different. It's the same thing because I would say that officers get, full of themselves. They get their ego going. They think that they're untouchable. They can do whatever they want. And that leads them to go down a path and that there's no recovering from. And put that on the amount that they're desensitized to the normal things that a citizen would see. So their sexual deviance is more, their sense of humor is, rotted because they've seen so much working on the department. It just leads down a bad path, and I've seen it happen many, 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 many times. She's not far off.
Wow.
She's not.
And what's funny is I didn't know that. I would have thought that it would have been something along the lines of beating people's asses would have been the most prevalent criminal situation with police officers.
No, sexual misconduct is nowadays way more common than beating people's ass.
And is that just as simple as a male officer searching a woman and then they could call that sexual misconduct? Or are we talking about like really blackmailing people by saying, I'll get you off this ticket if you do this, if you do a little something strange?
We're talking about all the above. We'd have an officer got fired for, making a girl show him his boobs, a couple years ago, in my department. So that has happened. We've, also had, everything you can think of sexually misconduct we've had on this department. And
wow.
And let's just say that all of it, because this is a good old boy system that the police departments unfortunately most of them operate in, these misconducts and things happening weren't all handled the same. It depends on who you are, who you're connected with, whether it gets swept under the rug or whether it gets, handled right on top like it should be. And that's what's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. Okay. Yes. Well, I know I dug in a little bit deep on that last one because, I'm not going to say that that's personal, but I'm just saying if we need to be looking out more for that as a problem with the police in the community than whether or not some unarmed Black man is getting shot, we need to be more worried about police misconduct in the way of sexual misconduct. That's a whole different conversation than what most people have when they have the talk, when it comes to police interaction. And most people don't talk to their daughters as much about police interaction. I'm talking about Black people in this regard. Most people don't talk to their daughters the same way that they would their sons about the interaction. And if this is something that we might need to have a conversation about, maybe we should be putting our daughters on point as well to say that, officers are known for doing this as well, and you should be careful of this, and you should know your rights as far as searches, like, a guy can't pat you up and get all up in your crack and all of that. He's supposed to call a female officer. Maybe we should let our daughters know that they need to be watching out for officers who are predators as well. So that's interesting. 100% agree. That is something that the conversation needs to be had. Yeah, that's an interesting conversation. I didn't know that. That was actually pretty good. So let me bring everything back over here to our main screen here because we're getting ready to close out. So, hold on a second. All right. Hopefully it doesn't glitch this time. It was glitching on us because we're talking about that real stuff. And every time I do this on this show, YouTube will start sending me messages talking about sensitive topics and all these other things. But today was about one of the realest shows that we've had on this particular network because it was unscripted and it was, real answers from somebody who really was an officer. So I do appreciate you doing that for us because I was a little afraid, but we made it through. We made it through. Yeah, we made it through. So before we get out of here, I just want to make sure I didn't have any particular questions that I had forgotten on the way. I think we kind of got through most of it. But are there any other numbers or trends or anything with the police force that you think the public might benefit from knowing? Because like that sexual misconduct, I didn't know anything about that. Is there anything else that maybe the public should be aware of? Well, I would just say that, police work just like any other job, does have certain things you have to do. And, I don't know why, but, law enforcement through my whole career, are there quotas? No, there's no quota. Of course there's quotas. Just like every other job, if you're a manager or whatever, you got to do whatever you got to do to be a manager. If you're a police officer, there are quotas like, I want you to get, 1 DUI a month. I want you to get 2 traffic stops a day. You need to get 5 arrests a month. Like all these things are real things that, officers experience. What kind of negative repercussions do you get if you don't meet these quotas? Do they fire you as a cop? They don't fire you. They transfer you. They switch you around. They give you all the shit duties, the stuff that you don't want to do, like prisoner transports, like hospital details. They make you guard somebody in the hospital if we have a guy who's under arrest in the hospital. All the details you don't want to do. They'll send you to all those to try to get you and tell you, well, your stats were low last month. You need to get on it. Stuff like that. And they use that as a motivator to get you to arrest more people or hit more quotas. They use it as a motivator to let you know that you're not doing what we want you to do. So we're going to give you all the shit details until you start doing it, and then we'll back off. That's the way that goes. So you get the crappy detail, but you'll still have to, at some point, get back out there and prove that you're not supposed to be on the crappy detail. Correct. Wow. And
is there, there's some undue pressure that comes along with that. So is that one of the things that you would say the pressure is more for Black officers to perform, or is that just across the board? It doesn't matter who you are.
No, I think the pressure for Black officers, at least that I'm familiar with, is Black officers they would try to say, okay, for years on my department, we only had a certain amount of Black people. Like if we had 1,000 officers, we'd only have 20 to 40 Black people in the whole department. So it's a very small portion, but they would want and try to put us in the predominantly Black areas because they're thinking, you can handle those people, you can handle your people, better than I could, and they'll put you in that area. So the pressure comes is that being a Black officer, and I've unfortunately did it both ways. Sometimes when you're young and you're full of piss and vinegar and you're eager, you get in that area and just go crazy. But then your eyes really get open and you start to see that, hey, I'm Black too. Look, I need to start treating these people like I would treat my brother, my uncle, my sister. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of this thing to solve it initially for this right here. And I think it's a lot of pressure on Black officers to, do more than what is expected to them just because they might be working in a disenfranchised area. Hey, look, you need to hammer these people and, get these people to do right or, put them all in jail. You never can fill up a jail, and jail's not the answer. But that's what I've learned through my career. It's not the answer for everybody.
Do they teach you to try to humanize the people in the community, or is it really just y'all, the officers versus the community? In the past years, they've talked about humanizing. They try to teach it, but what I'm saying is that the vast majority of the officers do not believe that. They're still, it's us versus them. That's the blue line, us versus them. That still exists, and that is still live and active. Now, is that because, of course, officers face some additional dangers that most people don't? So you kind of have to have your officers back first so that everybody makes it home to their families at the end. Is that really what it's about? Or is it just as simple as we have this position that, some people perceive as above others and we're going to use it?
Well, I would say that there's both going on at the same time. There's the ones working together to make sure that, we go home with safety and everybody goes home. And as well as there's the other side of it going on that's like, hey, fuck everybody else. We're going to do what we want. They're both going on at the same time. If there's a shift of 20 guys, both those things are going on, on that shift, in some respects. And that's the problem.
Okay, well, we're getting ready to close out, but I have to ask this last question. If you're not comfortable with answering, please let me know. But have you ever had to utilize deadly force on a suspect before?
No, I've had to threaten it a few times, but never actually had to do it.
Okay, that's a good thing because, I can imagine that something like that as a part of your job might affect somebody mentally and make it, a little bit harder to continue to do the job. So I'm sure you've known some officers that have been in these situations. Have you seen them become better officers afterwards or worse?
I would say both. I've seen, officers that have just, because of that, have turned to drugs and alcohol and has just gotten way too consuming in their life. I've seen officers commit suicide from that. So not physically seen them commit suicide, but that spiraled their life to getting to that point where then they end up committing suicide. And I've seen officers where since that situation, they've become better officers. So I've seen it both ways, but I've seen it more than not. It usually after the deadly force situation, it makes that officer extremely, extremely edgy. And, they are always thinking that it's coming back to that situation, like a PTSD type thing. But, I've been in so many, riot situations and big fights. I don't like going out on the 4th of July. I can't be around crowds. So I have some of some of myself also, you know.
And we got some questions in the chat over here. Someone was asking, have you ever witnessed a fellow officer stealing?
No, I have not done that. I have not seen that at all.
Well, that's good, because they always make a movie about the officers taking the people's money. Now, when you say you haven't seen this, it could mean that somebody just didn't let you know that they were doing that. Have you ever had any of your officers dismissed for allegations of theft?
No, not that I've seen in my time on my department for stealing, but I've seen some or heard about some crooked officers, and I've had some officers who have started off crooked, and they call me there. I gotta line them back out to say, hey, we're not doing this. You're gonna do it this way. Or I've had times where I'm like, look, I'm leaving. You know, you deal with your own thing, and I just rolled out and got on the radio and say, hey, put me clear. they're doing their own thing. I'm out of there. You know.
Wow. Okay, well that's kind of scary, you know, because it's almost like you know, we don't know what happened after you left.
Yeah,
we don't know what happened.
I don't want to know what happened.
Right, plausible deniability, right there.
Yes.
So in the future, I know you mentioned that you didn't recommend your sons get into law enforcement, but for anybody who might want to actually get into law enforcement, do you have any advice for them to make the journey a little easier?
Well, you know, I would say, you know, first and foremost, you know, make sure that you stay physically capable and physically in shape. That makes all the difference. You know, try to keep your, you know, learn as you go, listen, learn, you know, keep your eyes open. You know, the more you listen, the more you learn. You can, you know, help expand that. When you first come on, your vision is like looking through a scope this big. And then as you get there, more experience, it starts to widen up. You know, if you can just be open to always learning and don't, you know, think you know everything, you have a good chance to really help some people and you know, make somewhat of a difference. You know, you just got to realize that, you know, you're going to help people. You're making a solve for the individual situation for that day. You know, you're never going to solve the whole thing or make it go away. You know, you got to realize that, but just keep your eyes and ears open and be willing to learn, and can definitely do some good out here. But, you know, stay in shape, and, you know, take a second and try to look and see if what you think it is actually is what it is. Sometimes it won't be. Don't let your biases, you know, influence you. You know, make sure, take a second, take a second to make sure it is what it is before it pops off.
And do you think that, because they're trying to roll out some new laws in Maryland, I think it is, regarding people who are part of the federal ICE organization, and that they can't run for like office later. And I'm wondering if you think that that's fair. Like, if, you know, because that only counts for federal ICE agents. It's not all law enforcement, just that particular group. Do you think that federal ICE agents should be prevented from running for political office when they're done being agents?
I think anybody should be able to run for political office regardless. As long as they're, you know, a citizen, they should be able to run for office. But, you know, don't even get me started on all the stuff that that ICE is doing wrong.
That's a whole nother conversation, and I was going to have you back to have that conversation.
Yeah, that's out of control.
It is a whole different situation going on with that. And then as soon as we started talking about ICE stuff, they started a war somewhere else. So now we got to deal with that. So that's going to be interesting. But I really do thank you for coming on to the show. I'm giving a special shout to everybody in the chat, and a couple of questions that they had that came through the chat. Thank them for coming on. You guys have been the best. But do you have any other last words for the audience when it comes to not just people trying to get into law enforcement, but better ways for people to handle interactions with law enforcement? Do you have any tips for them?
Well, you know, I would say, listen, you gotta, like I said in that one video, you know, listen, me being, you know, a big African-American man, I have had the what do they call it, driving while black. I've experienced that. It's not the easiest thing. Try to verbalize and telegraph what you're going to do before you do it, so that you can make it out of the situations. I've had to do it myself, and you have to realize that, look, they're police officers. They got the uniform, they got the gun, they got the badge. Most times we don't have that. So let's try to, I don't say you have to agree with them. You don't have to, listen to what they do, but let's at least be communicative so that we can get through the situation without it popping off bad on our end, right? We don't need to escalate the situation. Just live through the situation, then you can figure it out, how to do it and how to sue them at the end. You know what I mean? But let's live through it first. Let's
survive the interaction. That is the rule. You got to survive the interaction. And a lot of these videos, we always hear about, people not complying and all that kind of stuff. But, sometimes people are very frustrated. Like when you get pulled over by the police, you're normally not happy, right? So you're going to be agitated. You're going to be annoyed. And it seems like when the officer is annoyed already because they had to pull you over, like you said, you got quotas, and then you got the person that's pulled over, they're annoyed because they got pulled over. You got a fuse just waiting to explode. And I worry about people in the community because we see so many videos where it starts out one way, and by the end of it, somebody doesn't make it home, whether it's the officer or the person in the car. And the officer has to always be mindful of, you never know who you're walking up on. So some of them are very nervous, and that comes out in, they're trigger happy and all this kind of stuff. So it's a dangerous world out here. But I really want to thank you for coming in and at least sharing some wisdom with the folks here, because some of us won't make it through the interaction because some of us don't know how to calm it down.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. And that de-escalation thing is so important. Maybe if we were able to teach each other how to de-escalate things and not just try to teach the police force to do it, maybe we'd be better off. That's just my thought. Just my thought. But nonetheless, man, I know we got to get out of here. It is late, and I'm about to go get something to eat. So I'm just making sure there's no additional questions in the chat. There are not. So we're going to go ahead and conclude this wonderful purge of the BS. I want to once again thank my special guest, former Corporal Ron Gamble from Anne Arundel County in Maryland. And thank you very much for coming on. I truly appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. All right. Well, that is all we are doing for today. We're going to go ahead and get up out of here. But if anybody wants to check the replay, you can always replay this again. I'll drop the shorts in a day or so. Ron, I'll send you a couple of shorts if you want to share them. Totally up to you. But I do really appreciate it, man. So with that, we're going to get on out of here. And I'm going to let the people know we're back on Saturday. Make sure y'all show up on Saturday. And if you do not show up on Saturday, then my friends, that is the bullshit. And we are out of here. Peace. Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much.